Hey everyone, welcome back. Bettsbert's Golf. Ryan and Andy here to talk about the 2023 Valspar Championship, coming off of what felt like an inevitable Players Championship. We had a dominant performance by a guy that's been pretty damn dominant for going on a year plus now. Andy, how we doing?
Good, yeah. I had 5 outrights. All 5 made the cut. All 5, none of them were just like, hey, he made the cut on the line and then just faded. All 5 were doing well. None of them had a goddamn chance. And I had second and third place. I had Hovland and Hatton. Hatton made a shitload of money, and he even looked happy, which is, I wonder if we should be backing Hatton now that he's turned a corner. He's not a grump, but yeah, Hovland, no shot. Hatton, no shot. Any of the guys who were actually close to Scheffler on Sunday, not really a shot. It was like, I remember thinking, I'm like, I need him to go in the water a couple times, I think, at this point, like at least 2 water balls. It's like, I'm getting 0. I'm not getting any. I'm not even going to watch the end of this. I'm going to go find something productive to do and just hope some of these matchups work out. So it was, but you got to tip your hat to him.
I really debated for way longer than I should have, because it's not a bet that I typically make, but like going into round 4, he was like minus 250 and he's just like a shot up. And like, that's a terrible bet in golf. But like, is Min Woo Lee going to chase him down? Is there anyone else out here that's going to chase him down? And it became pretty evident quickly that even when like he bogeyed the first and Min Woo birdied, and like it just kind of collapsed onto itself, Scotty still never really dropped below like minus 175. And then those were obviously gone and evaporated very, very, very quickly. So he's just playing really good golf. He's won 6 times in the last 27 starts. He's won at a variety of golf courses. I don't know. He's still out there right now, Andy, at 9-1 at Augusta. It's not a bet that you and I typically make, but like, I don't know, man. Like, he's playing so well, and he's got, out of the big 3, I mean, he's got the green jacket, right? Like, I want to make the bet.
Did you see Calhoun's prop bet he put on it? He had it. It was to win the Players and the Masters. So Link Calhoun, who just finds himself in spots like this all the time, has essentially Scotty 125-1 to win the Masters. My goodness. You can bet a lot of other guys and not feel bad about it, having that number in your pocket. So
nuts.
Kudos to the King, who also, again,
checkers and chess, dude.
I should do, we're doing a recap here. I should recap my Rainmakers. I entered nothing but contests that paid out cards. Like if you place high enough, you just get more Rainmaker cards. 7 for 7. Just open it. I don't want to sell them. I don't want to make money. I just love ripping packs. Nothing like Monday. It's great having money in your DFS account after you win. What's even better is having packs, ripping packs. And you know what I got this week? I got an Elite JT.
Okay.
Which is nice because it's beautiful. Out of all like the good top end golfers, he's like the only one playing. Yeah. So it's nice. I can use the card right away this week.
I will play.
So
props to Cal.
Rainmaker's season, and shout out to Cal, and shout out to anyone who had some luck with Scheffler last week. Fun. Now we get into a weirdish part of the schedule with Valspar Valero, and then Match Play / Punta Cana in there, and then the big dog, which we did mention that on Twitter too. Monthly subs are $20. That's not some deal. That's always just a special. Like, if you don't want to be betting golf during NFL, or you don't care in January, you just want to do a few months worth. We don't have a 6-month package. You just do a monthly thing. It auto renews $20 a month. And like, if you do one right now, it gets you the entire Masters. So good timing for that. If that's a big event, you want to take advantage of getting in the Discord and snagging some early numbers with the guys, taking advantage of all the premium stuff and the tools. So good time for that. But yeah, right now we'll get into Innisbrook, whatever resort and country club. This is essentially in Tampa. And I know it's called 2 things. Like, the course is called Copperhead. The resort is called Innisbrook. So a little confusing sometimes, but all in all, it's just the Valspar, and it's not the worst field. This isn't the Honda. This is there's some decent names. It's not exciting like an elevated event, but you can do a lot worse than this for sure.
Yeah, there's some talent here. You mentioned JT at the top of the board. There are some guys, so that helps a little bit. And it is a tricky track. It is long comparatively because it is a par 71. You have a lot of elevation changes. We got tree lined fairways. Plays a little bit more like Carolina golf than traditional Florida course that we've seen as of late. So that's a little unique too, and unique dispersion of holes too. We got an extra par 5. An extra par 3. They're all long. It's really hard to like make up on the field on these. Like you just kind of want to take your par and get out of there. You got to make your headway here on the par 5s in score. And actually, even the par 4s are a little bit shorter. They're like 400 to 450 for the most part. We typically are seeing more these days in the 450 to 500 bucket. So kind of a unique track. Also read some stuff that they are stretching the rough out here a little bit too. I think they're tired of the high teens approaching 20 on the finishing score. I think we're going to get a little bit more difficult conditions. This place does have narrow, fast fairways, so I think rough is going to come into play. I think fairways found, greens and reg are going to be harder, so you're going to have to scramble. You're going to have a lot of approach shots from longer than 200 yards here, so it is a difficult track. So I understand, similar to the Honda, why some of these top tier guys don't come often. But with match play coming up, again, guys want to be fine tuned heading into Augusta.
Yeah, and just pointing out, in Ron's preview isn't technically up, but I'm an editor, so I can go look at the 99% finished version of it. I think maybe it should be pretty soon. We've just been incredibly busy. Hopefully we have those up a little sooner as we go here, but he did make some points about some agronomical changes, I suppose he called it. And, two of them being that the scoring has been lower here. So they've tried to do a couple things to make it tougher. Like you pointed out, it's Parkland. It doesn't really look like a Florida course. Maybe the greatest compliment you can give a person, place, or thing, you don't look like you're from Florida. It just doesn't. It doesn't look like the last few tracks that we've had down here. It does look, like you mentioned, more like a Carolina course or something a little further north with the trees, despite being a Tampa Bay adjacent. But they were getting a little scory here, and they're going to raise the rough to almost 4 inches. So it's about 3. It's going to go to 3 3/4. And then I'm not sure what this is called, the size of the intermediate cut. Anyone, if you've looked at you look at the edge of a fairway and you have that intermediate cut and you say, maybe there's like 2 feet of that, however wide it is, I suppose the width of that. They've decreased that around the greens. So when you have that intermediate cut around the greens, they've made that smaller from 72 to 21, which just brings the actual bad rough a lot closer to the greens. So if you are missing these greens, there's a lot less chance it's just going to slowly trickle off into basically 3.5, 4 feet of this intermediate stuff. It might end up in the long stuff a lot more often than not. And they're small greens, so it's going to be tough anyway. So I think usually we look at like what's been important here historically, and ARG around the green has been a little less, and it always is, but maybe comes into play a little more as people are chipping out of rough more often than they have in the past. And honestly, probably as much as fairway accuracy has been important here, it's probably just going to keep ramping up if this rough is going to be nasty like that. Like 4 inches of a southern rough like this isn't going to be fun for anybody who finds himself in the deep stuff.
Yeah, one of the things Andy mentioned, we've been busy. We have turned the lights on for our stat database tool on the sites. Still very much in beta mode. Still working out some of the kinks there. But subscribers have access to that, where you can do lots of customization, lots of filtering. One of the cool filters that is on there that, things, we do have some unique things that aren't out there in the space. You could filter by strokes gained around the green and scrambling on longer grass versus shorter grass. And to Andy's point, we're going to have a little bit more around the green, longer grass this week than most. So I want to make sure that tool is absolutely on point before we really start to promote it. But current subscribers get their hands in it. We've asked them to poke holes in it. We're very excited about that. It's been a labor of love, maybe, Andy. I don't know. It's been a labor for the past year or so, but we're really excited about the future. It's been a labor. Yeah.
Labor for sure.
Yeah.
So, anything else on the course before we kind of get to the field and the stats that mattered? I had a couple more notes. I want to hear what you had yet.
Yeah, I mean, some similar stuff. I think, looking at corollary courses, I think was a bit difficult. I do think there are some resemblances to Honda because you do need to, it's going to play a little bit harder. Longer approaches matter. You do have, similar to last week, though, you have a lot of forced layups off the tee. It's really hard to gain strokes here. So there is an aspect of positional golf, which is very similar to TPC Sawgrass. You got to be able to work the ball around. The elevation changes, I think, make it playable to really all sets of golfers. And I think you kind of see that when you look at leaderboards from years past. You don't necessarily just have bombers. You have seen some guys that are, a little bit more, they hang back a little bit off the tee. So I do think that it brings a lot of that field into play here. So, water less of an issue than obviously last week, where water was basically in play on 17 of 18. You mentioned it is more parking style, but in terms of you tell me what other stuff you have, and then we can get into kind of what we're, kind of focusing on in terms of statistics this week.
Yeah, once you get to the back nine, there's a bunch of water. It's less pronounced than last week. Water being maybe the main feature of TPC Sawgrass. Less pronounced, but still plenty of problems on the back nine when you get in the water. And like you mentioned, clubbing down. A lot of the par fours are less than driver. You're going to see a lot of similarities where it is positional golf, good strategy, finding ways to put yourself in good positions, because it's going to be a long iron shot when we get to stats that matter. Iron shots over 200 yards are going to come into play a lot. So you're going to need to be good with the long irons. One interesting note pointed out by Mr. Wiley on who makes just the best too long didn't read notes tweets about the course. Some Augusta success comps. There have been a lot of players who played well at Augusta who've traditionally played this course well. I can see that as well with some of the strategy involved down there in Georgia. And then, like you mentioned, it's a 71. And a lot of times when there's a 71, it's like, oh, we took away a par 5. Not the case. They added a par 3. That's, you instead of losing a stroke on the par 5s, you lose a stroke on the par 4s. So one fewer par 4. So there's just as many par 5s as a normal course, however you want to say that. So you're still going to need to score on that. It's going to be playing different than in years past, but you've seen that where, hey, this guy just absolutely ate up the par 5s, and that's how he competed top 10 or won in Sam Burns' case a couple years back. Like, that's still going to be in play. So guys who can, you do need both sides of the off the tee. You need to be able to club down, hit it accurately, put yourself in position on these par 4s that require it. But it ain't going to hurt to be able to hit the piss out of the ball on the par 5s, where you can put yourself in position to find lots of scoring opportunities over the 4 days.
Yeah, distance always matters, right? We talk about that sometimes where, you don't get like bombers per se off the tee, but distance carries over throughout the bag, right? So, if you're being able to hit a little bit of a, if you're going to be able to hit a 7 iron where some of the field is hitting a 5, you're going to have a better shot at holding the green. So, distance is always going to be an advantage. Just in terms of what matters, approach is always going to matter. We're talking about approach mattering here. I think Andy's point is correct. I think leaning towards a longer proximity 200 plus, proximity 200 plus from the rough is going to matter. When you look at the dispersion last year, you look at like almost a third of the approach shots were over 200 yards. In comparison, last week at Sawgrass, it's like 24%. So it's a pretty significant bump. And a lot of them, when we look at last year, you had 15.2% of approach shots coming in over 250 yards. So like they're forcing you to hang back quite a bit. That is like nearly double a tour average event. So, those things matter here pretty significantly. And I think you've seen some guys that fare well there. You're kind of sticky on top of the board here, or at least in the mix. So good drives matter too. Good drive percentage gains, fairways gains, because you mentioned like this gets a lot harder out of the rough, and it's going to get a lot harder this year considering what we're talking about in terms of growing the rough out. So You got to make sure that you have that taken care of. And you got to be able to scramble. You got to make sure you can get up and down from, the inevitable missed greens here as well. Is there anything else that you're weighing here?
No, I think you kind of covered most of it. We'll get to some of it as we go, but that, the
I'm also
water's
bumping par
tough.
fives. Par fives,
Yeah.
you got to make headway on par fives.
You got to make headway, and then you just can't be overly stupid. Like, the water is there, but it's not like some of these Florida courses, or Christ, even the 3M, where people are constantly in the water. Like, you don't take a ton of penalty strokes here. It's just kind of, it's there to push you in a different direction for the most part. So don't worry too much about that. I'd worry way more about the bunkering. Very heavily bunkered for the most part. And you're going to get yourself in trouble in the bunkers and the rough a lot more than the water. So, and yeah, like Ryan said, score in the par fives. And I guess just like if you want to go into stats that matter and what you use and what we're using for looking ahead, it's trying to separate stuff. Like, I did a lot of the things we've already talked about. I said par five scoring, proximity, 200 plus, a little bit of around the green, because I think that's going to be upweighted compared to years past. Always mentioning good drives gained, which is finding a green in regulation after a drive, no matter if it lands on the fairway or not. Fairways gained, any sort of fairway efficiency, accuracy, degree, slight look at driving distance, but less so than in weeks past. And then I don't know what you did to the par threes. They're all really long. And I wonder if there's some double counting, because a tee shot into a par three is not an approach shot, but it kind of is. Like, guys who are really good with long irons are going to be even better on, par threes that are 200 plus yards. Because, hey, if you're good with possibly mud on the ball, playing from the fringe and hitting a green, you're going to be great with a beautiful, clean dry ball off a tee. So it's kind of some double counting, but you can look at par threes, over 200 yards, look at some people's efficiency numbers there, because it's hard to get yourself in too much trouble on these. But if you're constantly, finding yourself with long putts on these par threes, that's going to be a bit of a problem to get yourself up the leaderboard as well. I think, what else do I use? Just putting is a little more, it's not as sticky ever, but a little more here than some places. And then just off the tee a lot higher than I normally have it.
Yeah, I do think the par three stuff is double counting because of the nature of what they are. And I am giving proximity weights. So I do feel like I'd be overweighting it. So you could do that. You could put them both in and just maybe whatever you would like, weigh the proximity over 200. You just kind of divvy that up into the par three stuff. Cause I think there's something to that where you would maybe minimize some of the double counting. You're going to double count a little bit anyway, right? If I'm giving proximity at 200 plus and I'm giving approach weight, there's some double counting in there too. So it's, just trying to minimize the double counting, I think, to the best of our ability. We look at the top of the board, the besties, probably on a PGA, making their way down here with JT and Spieth at the top of the board. Basically, between 10 and 12 for the most part, depending on your books. Fitzpatrick, debut year last year, 5th, was in significantly better last year than he is this year. Really, the approach and long approach has been, kind of his undoing. He's not been playing really good golf, unfortunately, at all. Sam Burns going for the three-peat. They do not have a lot of three-peat, champions here over the last, or, on tour in the last 20 plus years.
Ever,
guys
anywhere.
Not named Tiger Woods. Yeah. Guys not named Steve Stricker at the John Deere. Otherwise, Burns going for the three. And you're paying the price, right? He's between, basically 16 to 18, almost painted across the board, even shorter at Chris. Those are your guys that are sub 20, the top 4. Again, the big 3 aren't here this week, but again, as you mentioned, this is better than the Honda, even having, these 4 guys. And I think the next tier is decent as well. Are you interested at all in the top guys?
No, I mean, just looking at, if you look just at name power, Matthew Fitzpatrick being shorter than Burns and Spieth, over a long period of time, heading backwards doesn't feel right, but his current form just isn't good enough to merit betting him probably at under 20-1, even in a softer field like this. It just, he's not clicking. Like, golf is hard and he's not playing good golf right now. So as much as I love him, and it was cool watching him really flourish, especially at the big one last year, it's just not something I'm interested in. Like, honestly, if I had to bet someone at the top of the board, it'd be Justin Thomas at 10. Like out of those guys, it's that price is probably should be a little lower. Like, he's a clear class here, and it's just not something I normally will be doing, even though maybe I should just be betting Scheffler and Rahm every week and watching them take like 5 of the titles here so far. So I won't be betting Spieth. I won't be betting Fitzpatrick, and I haven't been keen on Burns, although he played pretty decent last week. The one near the top, I will be betting, and I'm just searching for the best price because maybe I did miss it. Is Justin Rose. It was a name, and then wasn't a name that we took serious, and now it's like, well, Christ, look at this guy's short-term form. Look how he's playing right now. Like, he's just as good as these top names currently. So Justin Rose, first one on my card. I don't know how I feel about it. It was kind of a guy I've avoided for a while. I was saying, I've bet him in between here and there, but like the year that the last time I actually had serious bet on him was the year he lost the Masters to Sergio, I suppose. Like, he's been sprinkled in some outright cards, but it's been few and far between. So I don't know what the current price was on that. I do think you've bet that one as well.
I didn't, but I wanted to. It's actually right now, like I could make the case for it. I could add him. It's a little short. It's domestics. He's 18. He's 22 across the board in domestics. What are you seeing? 18 at Chris? Like,
yeah, I think I can find 20 or better for sure.
Yeah, he is 22.
22. I can find a 22.
Yeah, 22 across the board.
I'm not betting 18.
I get it though. I mean, you look at it. Let me see where he is popping for me this week. He very, very high. And doing everything. 5th overall for me. He's top 20 in approach, 26th in par 5 scoring, 10th in good drives, coming off of a pretty decent showing last week as well. At a very difficult course. Course where some of these skills matter. I mean, he strokes gained tee to green. Where was he last week? He's like 6th in strokes gained tee to green last week. He just kind of was field average putting. Played really good golf. So I get why he is priced where he is. And, I can understand someone making the case for him. So, 22 is a little steep, but again, this is, once we get past this next little tier, it's not a great field. So, like, you can kind of take the mentality of like, all right, bombs, or, I'm going to give myself a guy that's already won, playing some decent golf, seems to have turned the corner, fits this place really well. And I think Justin Rose checks that box in a big way.
Yeah, so I did better. And a lot of it is form, but also fit.
Yeah.
Like, anything I did to fit, he plays pretty highly as well. Could be finding greens a little better, could be putting a little better. But, when I did do my form, my long-term combined with short-term form metrics, and then ranked people out, he was number 1. It's basically him, Ben Griffin, and JT, with some Tommy Fleetwood has actually had some decent form too, if you're just counting what I count. So also up there, Denny McCarthy. Like, Cal was kind of dogging on him. I was talking to him earlier, and I said Denny kind of played good last week, and obviously he's a good putter, but really was showing that off at times. So someone I zeroed in on, did not end up betting, but at the top, like we said, the only one so far for me is Justin Rose. Like, that next tier, I guess we'll leave that because the next tier is kind of a next tier. There's a bit of a cutoff, I suppose, around 20. Takes a little bit of a jump to the Hadwin Keegan area.
So I did. Hadwin was my first bet at 28. Again, was just ahead of Justin Rose last week in strokes gained tee to green. Played some really good golf. I think fits here in terms of what we're asking these guys to do or expecting them to do. Overall approach over the last 36 rounds, he's 6th, 10th in par 5 scoring, 11th in good drives. He's not been great in terms of longer proximity. That would be where he would probably be, dinged a little bit, but decent course history. He's played well T7 here last year. I think he has 3 T12s or better in the last 5 years at this place, including a win. I think back in 18 or 19, two missed cuts sprinkled in there as well. So like, and I think that's what you see pretty much across the board here. So some guys with some pretty good course history, and then they've all missed a bunch of cuts. So I'm not weighing course history very much whatsoever. So just like Hadwin, like the number at 28, those are gone. So, now you're getting into the spot where like, I kind of like Rose a little bit more if we're getting these guys both at 22. But the Hadwin opening at 28 was a pretty good number to jump on, where he kind of opened at 22 to 25 in most spots, and there was an outlier 28. So that was kind of why I jumped in there.
Yeah, I get it. I wouldn't bet him at 22, but if he was closer to 30, I definitely have to think about it.
Yeah.
In my pricing, my numbers, I have him fairly high too. Again, a lot of it is just kind of steady Eddie. He's not super high in anything I did, but he's high enough in all of them because of the weakish field, just kind of a top 20 guy in everything: form, fit, function, greens and regulation, approach metrics. My mixed condition model for the week, he's up there. And so is Keegan, but I don't know. I'm just not in the business of betting on Keegan, I guess, out loud at least.
I am. Unfortunately, I do it weekly on the show. I wanted a 30, and I got kind of caught holding the want for an arbitrary 30, and now we've moved to basically 20s. And I'm torn because I feel like there's a guy I bet every week. If he actually turns it on and played some really good golf in round one last week, did not play well on Friday, missed the cut. Essentially going full Keegan, which is a term that was born here actually at the Copperhead, where he was the first round leader and then missed the cut a handful of years ago. So impressive feat in Keegan.
Yeah, it's only been done a couple times since. Like, it is a crazy impressive feat.
Yeah. Hard to do. So I'm not currently on Keegan. I think Ron took it. I like it. Just we'll see. I don't think I'm going to make the jump into to 20 on Keegan. Some other guys now, we jump down a little bit that are interesting. The one that when you mentioned the Augusta corollary, not something that I've caught, that makes Brian Harman interesting to me, because Brian Harman, lefties like Augusta. Maybe there's something with lefties here that I'm missing, but Brian Harman could be interesting to some folks. Price wise is decent comparatively. I took a jump down to Wyndham Clark, who I like quite a bit here.
A lot of cards. I saw a lot of cards with Wyndham Clark.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like how he's played pretty well last week too, at a course that I wouldn't think would fit him very well. I feel like this is a better fit for his game. What has he done here? I don't even know what he's actually ever done here, if that were to matter. I just kind of like where his game is trending a little bit. I don't think he's got anything of note from a course history standpoint. Oh yeah. Missed the cut last year. 60th the year before. So, and again, I'm not really giving that any weights, but in terms of what I think matters here this week, last 36 rounds, he's first for me. First in par 5 scoring, 9th in approach overall. Really, he's been good in everything. Proximity over 200 yards, 12th. Good drives, 31st. Scrambling, 23rd. He's really no outlier in terms of where he's gone wrong. So recent form, Wyndham Clark makes a lot of sense for me here. 40 is gone. But I don't know. I don't hate where we at. 33s, 37 on FanDuel. Looks like 41 on Chris. So is he popping for you at all?
Yeah, I bet him. 41.50 on Chris. Just more of a, hey, this number's gone everywhere else. And if I got a 40, I'd probably bet him, considering there's a lot of 33s in the market. Kind of the same thing you said. This is actually a better fit. And he's played decently. His current form amongst the entrants here in the field, I have his long-term plus short-term form ranked 9th in the field. His approach game, greens and regulation, all that jazz, proximity, all the long iron stuff ranks high enough, and his fit is high enough where a 40 is a pretty decent price for me here. So he was quickly on the short list, and it was one of those where I said I just need to shop. So I don't feel like betting 33. So Wyndham Clark did make my card. A little overlap with us there.
Yep, I like it.
Another guy I don't feel like I've bet a whole lot, but just considering who we have here and what I'm willing to bet, this is for sure a guy I'm taking.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to mention too, like in terms of what you're how you would rank some of these main things. For me, and I'd imagine I think you're the same, but I think it's always for me form, then fit, and then if there's anything left in terms of course history, that is I think specific to certain places. I think early in the schedule we get a lot of those places when we look historically of where course history is pretty sticky. Augusta still to come is probably the stickiest. Once you kind of navigate that place a few times, I think you see some repeated success. Part of that is also the nature of the field. It's a 90-person event. Once you cut down the Sandy Lyles and Larry Mises of the world, you're really dealing with like a field of 70 that are really viable. So that's probably part of it. But does that echo true for you too in terms of how you would rank the key things, I guess, big bucket things that matter?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to that. And a lot of it does come down to just like what I call nudges, where, hey, this guy's close, but here's a bunch of ancillary stuff that maybe isn't ever going to make a decision for me. But if I'm 90% one way and 3 or 4 of these little nudges lean that same way, it's probably it'll seal the deal for me.
Yeah. I'd rather just you be playing really good golf. And I think historically too, if you've done this long enough, you know that there are some guys that are also form golfers. When they're playing really well, they tend to stay in form. And then JT is an example of not a form golfer. JT can have these I don't really give
hard peaks and valleys. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
there are guys that play themselves into form. There's guys that need to do it over the course of weeks. And when they're playing well, they're playing well. There's guys that can just pop out of nowhere. So yeah, and JT being a prime example. The Larry Mize thing giving me PTSD too. Like of all the Rainmaker, I think I have a lot more Mike Weirs than anything. Mike Weir turns out does not play a lot. not entering a ton
Champions
of
Tour.
Yeah. Not entering. He did play the RBC Canadian last year in addition to the normal Masters. So you get 2 events a year out of Mike Weir. Larry Mize. So I don't even know which. Usually there's like an old every year who quits. Like, I can't walk it anymore. I'm 70. I'm barely playing Champions Tour. Be interesting. It's about that time of year to start digging into like which of the old people are just sitting this one out at this point. Although I do believe we're full on in on Live. Like all the majors are just letting all the guys in.
Yeah,
so far, which is good. Yes, let's please have the good golfers. Like, we don't need to leave Cam out of these goddamn majors at this point.
No, I did start my Masters players guide, pulling forward from last year. That I think we did for free last year. We'll probably do it for free again. I literally profile every single golfer in the fields. So you have to write up a solid paragraph about Larry Mize. It becomes a little challenging, and Sandy Lyle and his lovely outfits every year, but those guys play the weekend or don't play the weekend, but they get a couple of rounds of golf and good for them. So
yeah, stop in, play 36, grab a pimento sandwich and enjoy the view. So
yeah, I play it until I couldn't.
You're not going to miss the Champions dinner unless you're Phil, asshole. Where are we at from there? We kind of got off track a little.
We're kind of we're kind of in the 40s. We're hanging out in here. I made another bet in this range as well.
It was Woodland Denny. Where are we at? Oh no, you cut out and I didn't hear it.
We're kind of in the Davis Riley.
Oh sure.
You losing me?
No, I heard you say Davis Riley. Where do I have him? I feel like I can get a pretty decent price in 36 at Chris right now. Looks like he's kind of been bet down. He's down to 28 at some places. So what kind of numbers you get on him?
I got a 40. There are 28s out there now.
Can't complain about that then.
Yeah.
I know, and I did mention this earlier about getting into the Discord. This is where if you want to do your research later in the week like I do, and you want to get some numbers that are going to move in the correct direction, you kind of want to be in the Discord, even if you're just putting some small units on these. For the most part, if Ron or Ryan bet something on Monday, the number's wrong. Like, hey, this is either an outlier at one book or it's clearly wrong and it's going to start moving the other way. So yeah, that's 28, pretty much 28 to 30 across the board. So a 40, I certainly can't fault you for. Kind of in that same area though, too. I did look at Gary Woodland. It looks like he's 40, 40, and 43 at the 3 books I'm looking at. I'm not sure. Just another guy. I think I say this every time we get to one of these events where not everybody's here, but another guy I don't traditionally bet. His form, it doesn't stink. I mean, compared to the field, but it stinks compared to all the guys I've been betting. But he ended up just so incredibly high in fit and so incredibly high in just iron play kind of metrics I used here that I've thought about this. I'm waffling on this. I wanted you to kind of talk me in or out of Gary Woodland, who he scares me.
The fit is so good, right? It's just the short game stuff that looks a little problematic. Some of the scrambling, the putting can be a problem, but like he's second for me, and I'm not weighing any putting stuff. So like if I were to weigh putting, he'd fall down.
That would drag you down.
Yeah, but approach, good drives, proximity. We know Gary historically less than driver stuff has been very good. He's been really good this year on approaches 150 yards plus out of the rough. Not a huge sample of data, but like he's been pretty good at that in his career. So I know a friend of the show, Jeff Feinberg, is on Gary Woodland this week. So I don't hate it.
I think I'm gonna do it. He's just good Luke List.
Yeah, it's not a bad comp.
He's Luke List with better upside.
Yeah.
Even if he has good accuracy to the greens and we're not finding a lot of longer putts or a lot of really problematic around the green stuff, he's competing here because the fit is perfect outside of that. So 43 at Chris.
Nice.
Woodland makes the card. Yeah, that was one I just kind of had earmarked. I think I needed to talk myself into it on the air more than anything, but yeah, Feinberg being on it helps too, because I can at least commiserate with him when this guy is missing just 6-footers left and right.
Yeah. The other one in that area that was a hard stay away for me because he's been playing so well, and the profile is just, we were kind of waiting for this for a little bit from Justin Suh, and he's finally kind of starting to do it a little bit. Let's see what the best of the number is out here. 37 on FanDuel. Looks like you get a 42 on Chris. I think he's a pretty popular click this week. Just the recent form has been really good. He's third for me overall. He's very similar to Gary Woodland in terms of like the scrambling, except he can putt. So Justin Suh is, if I were to probably add anything, just based on price, because Keegs and Rose would be a little bit pricey for me now that they're kind of at 2022. Suh still being available at 37 is the one I would consider adding to my card that I haven't yet. Any thoughts, or where does he show up for you?
No, he was fairly high for me as well. Again, the form not super high, but everything iron play, ball striking, the fit was really good. I just don't have a massive sample on the guy. Sometimes that worries me as well when I'm looking at this. Love watching like really nice swing, decent distance, good accuracy, great iron play at times. When he misses, it's not like one thing he has big problems with. It's just, I don't know, I guess it's just kind of acclimating himself. Like basically got to the tour in the swing season. He's not been, up for that long. Played some events in years past, but mostly bouncing around on the Corn Ferry for the last year or so. Now it looks like he's up for good, has some top 10s, has some top 20s, played well last week. And yeah, it's close. I think I keep saying that I'm going to start betting positional stuff, but I did make some notes on top 20s, and he was number one for me as far as guys I might bet a top 20 if the price is right on.
That's maybe what I do. I don't know. Coming into Augusta, I've already fired at one. I really want to fire at the top of the board. Scotty or Rory or someone at Augusta. I already bet Spieth. There's a 28 on Max at points bet. Like I might just keep it really tight and just have Scotty, Jordan and Max at Augusta, and maybe keep it really tight. So that's an expensive ticket. So maybe that's what maybe just Justin Suh gets himself a T20. But again, this was the best amateur in the world just a couple of years ago when like the Morikawas of the world were coming up. So like the like pedigree here for Justin Suh is legit. Now he stumbled a little bit more than some of those guys did coming into it. But this is not a guy that's like, 28 has been touring around in the Korn Ferry for a long time, trying to figure like he's been kind of one of the guys that we thought would be dominating on the tour, and it's kind of starting to happen a little bit. So I want to give it attention. I feel like he belongs where he is, in this recent form and recent good play checks out.
Yeah, I mean, and it was a weird time. He was coming up at a weird time in the world, I guess, with
It's true.
the COVID, the moving around of events. We had no fans for a bit, and then he ended up, like we said, back down on the Korn Ferry, had a good Korn Ferry season, ended up winning the Korn Ferry Championship in September. And like we said, looks like he's on the tour for good, had a really decent swing season and started the season well. He hasn't missed any cuts over here. Like we said, some top 20s, some top 10s. Seems like he's and you mentioned that too. Just Google PGA rookies and you'll go to like the official PGA site. When you click on it, it'll list all the rookies for the year, and then just start Googling them. A bunch are like 35. And sometimes that shit just happens. It takes a while. You're playing the Mackenzie Tour for 8 years, and it takes you a bit to get up. Like, it's funny what constitutes a rookie on the PGA Tour. I think, just they're just using it for, who are we going to give Rookie of the Year to? I suppose there's not a lot else to it, but it is funny because a lot of the rookies are not guys like this who are, in their early to mid 20s. It's fewer. There's more of it now where these guys can pop right now, like we've seen, but it's still crazy how many of these guys, it takes so much to get up at this point. So I'm probably going to bet a top 20 on them. I'm going to be looking at, like I said, some numbers on what I think makes sense for pricing on that, because I don't want to get into a bunch of top 20s and the only reason being like, hey, these are my FOMO outright bets that I didn't get in.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. The next area is kind of a dead zone for me. It's a pretty big area, but like I have the 2 at 40 with Riley and Clark. I mentioned had one at 28, and then my next bet is a triple digit bomb. There's some talented guys in here. Ben Griffin is a guy that we bet often, showed a little bit at the Players and, couldn't really close it. Alex Smalley showed a little bit at the Players and couldn't close it. Johnny Vegas is a guy that I bet at the Honda. This has some Honda feels. The long approach stuff, I think, fits well. These guys are kind of all in like the, depending on your book, Griffin a little shorter, 50s. There are some, I think he's 60 at Chris, which I think is a pretty good number. Vegas is kind of hovering around there too. And then, there's not a lot just above it that I like. I don't know if I skipped anyone that that pops for you or has caught your eye.
There was one I bet in this area, Steven Yeager. Got a 60, not crazy for it, but like you mentioned, decent comp to the Honda. Played really well, especially tee to green at the Honda. That sort of matters here. He played well in a much, you go look at the Honda and the Players, similar, but the fields were quite a bit different. So a little further down the leaderboard, but still played really well tee to green against an elite, a field at that point. Actually did better putting there, did pretty decent in kind of every aspect outside of putting. And, still you're 44th because there's a lot of damn good golfers. Not as many damn good golfers this week. And I had him ranked pretty high. Was happy to find something better than 50. And I did find a 60 at Bet Online. So Yeager's kind of the only one I took in that middle section before I started looking a lot further down the board into the long shot area, which, boy, I can really get deep into long shots if you want. Like you mentioned, mentioned Smalley. Smalley's always been a guy. I don't think I didn't look at him as triple digits if you just want to go straight iron play right off the bat.
Yeah, hundreds out there on Smalley. Looks like in terms of if anyone was wanting to jump in on the Yeager thing, 55 at Caesars, 55 at MGM, 60 on Bet365 if you happen to have that book. But decent price. I agree with you that, recent form has been pretty good, but yeah, bombs are more interesting to me than, say the, JT Poston, KH Lee, Nick Taylor type of guys here, Bo Hostlers, like just not a range that I'm dancing in. Because I do think there's some guys down the board in the triple digits that are pretty interesting. Did you fire on any, or who caught your eye?
Not yet. Like I said, Smalley off the bat, Nick Hardy a little off the bat, Bramlett. I mean, I'm always looking at 50-year-old Aussies and Cam Percy. I should just bet a Cam Percy top 40. Like again, it's probably going to be a decent number. The guy's always 300 to 1 and then just finds the cut line anyway. So Cam Percy's another one I'll be looking at for positional stuff. Homeless Hubbard, Ben Martin kind of made the list. That's probably it. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to find myself actually betting James Hahn. Lipsky, Laird, Neesmith, Hickok, Mullinax, that kind of section there too. Those are a bunch of guys that I could get behind. James Hahn had a really high course fit number for me. I'm probably still going to avoid it. I'm just not going to actually take money and bet him to win this sort of thing. It's that's another one that's maybe a lot of these guys probably do. As much as I said, I don't want to turn this into, hey, so here's some guys I almost bet outright, and I'm just going to stick them in the top 40, top 20 anyway. But like Han didn't play all that well at the two events down here. Like Genesis and Players miscut both times, putted really poorly last week, just played really badly at the Genesis. So crossed him off as much as I like some of the metrics, and that's going to be the case for a lot of these guys. Did I name anyone you betted? You betted.
You did? You bet my two favorite bombs. Quick, first of all, James Hahn. I cannot bet James Hahn. Tired of his antics. I don't want to like root for that guy. It's like,
is he the one that yelled at the guy for eating chips?
He's just.
So I can hear you eating those chips.
He's yelling at he did actually. He's also the one that's been like, mad at the tour for everything. He just, I don't know, just play better golf, James Hahn. Like you can still work your way into these designated fields, limited no cut events. Like I feel like he's been begging for a live invite and they just won't give him the bag. But like he really wants to be there because he, hates the PGA Tour. So I don't know. Can't bet James Hahn. The one I did bet was Matthew Neesmith. There are triple digits on Neesmith and profiles really well here. 11th for me overall. Similar to some other guys, it's kind of scrambling is where he goes wrong, but like long proximity, top 10. Good drives, top 10. Approach has been pretty decent. I thought like 100, north of 100. I think they're like 125s out there on Neesmith. I think that's a little too long. The other one is Bramlett. Bramlett also, again, distance matters everywhere. And even though he can't bang it off the tee like he would love to do, his distance is still going to play here. He's been a really good scrambler, makes headway on par fives. We know that matters. Approach overall over the last 36 is top 20 in the field. So I like Bramlett here quite a bit. I did not bet him. He probably will find his way into a plus money T40 or something because I think he shows up and plays pretty well here. So Neesmith got the money, but I think Bramlett's another guy that makes a ton of sense. So those are kind of my favorite two bombs.
Yeah, the only other one would be Smotherman for me, and I've grown out of love. Nicholas Echevarria, speaking of rookies, is another one I'm looking at for top 20s. I will be playing this week. Big talk from Andy every week. From those of you who are in the Discord and then see me post nothing I talk about, just some outrights and matchups. But I will have some positional bets this week. I regret not like just top 10 betting all of my outrights because I would have caught 2 of them for full placements, and that pays for the other 3 pretty quickly, even if they were short. I mean, Hat was 40 to 1. I'm not sure what you would have got for a top 5 at that point. I guess we could look at somebody like right now, Woodland. Gary Woodland is 40 to 1. So for a top 5 in Gary Woodland, we could get plus 850. I don't know how much I will love betting top 5s. There's not a lot of room margin for errors at that point, but even plus 425 on a top 10. So Hovland and Hatton plus 10s. I'm really good at betting with hindsight, but taking all my outrights at top 10s last week would have paid. Maybe I just need to start betting top 20s. I feel like I've done this a lot this year where I've had a lot of guys just they make the cut, they're halfway in contention, just never quite get there. I had Hovland 2 weeks ago, tied for the lead going into Sunday. Had Hatton, second. Hovland T3 last week. Finally going to get one. It's probably going to be Gary Woodland, but so far for me, and I'll just quick summation. I bet Justin Rose 22. I bet Wyndham Clark 41. I'm going to bet Gary Woodland and Steven Yeager at 60. What was my best Woodland price? I think it was just 40. Did it turn out to be Chris?
Yeah, Woodland. Chris is 43. Woodland's 43 at Chris. 43.50.
Yeah, that's going to be the best
good
one I
price.
have here. So Gary Woodland 43, and then Wyndham Clark 41 and change. Those are the funny Chris numbers that you get.
So real quick, and I think this is important. We touched base on this a little bit in terms of finishing position bets. Sorry if my internet is weird. I don't know what's going on.
No, you're fine right now.
It happened last week. We bubbled. I bet I bet Morikawa. I bet Finau both to win. I paired them with T20s. What happened was we got a bunch of guys at T19. Now I bet those on MGM because I will take the worst number to get the ties in full. And there were about 9 guys at T19. So if you bet a better number on DraftKings or FanDuel, you did not get the full payout because there were only, even though you're inside the number, there's only one spot for, 19 and 20. Now you start to, cut those down every number you get past that in terms of golfers. So especially to Andy's point, if you start jamming up to the top 5, top 10s, man, I would definitely do that on a place that pays ties in full if you have access. MGM, I think you said Bovada is the option.
Bovada is kind of your offshore option for that. The numbers are worse, but they will pay ties in full on everything except first round leader, which obviously chops everywhere. There's not a place in the world that'll pay full on multiple first round leaders. We ended up with an 8 for 2, which means 8 guys finished tied for 19th. So the 8 for 2 means 8 people finished where there's only room for 2 because 19th and 20th are top 20, 21st through 20, whatever, are not. So you had 8 guys and only room for 2, and 8 for 2 split will only break even on 3-1 or better. So if you had less than plus 300 on a top 20 price, you lost money on that bet. Which is, you do get a little back.
It sucks. But
unlike a $100 bet at plus 150, you're getting like $43.50 back or something ridiculous. It does suck to technically win a bet and not even get your full stake returned to you. So it is, it's a rough go, but kind of weigh your risk tolerance. I know with top 5, top 10, I always go no chop. With top 20, sometimes I wait. Like if the number is way better with a chop price, I will sometimes, veer down that path. But know what you're getting to with that for sure. We've mentioned that plenty.
Yeah, I will do it a little bit down the board in T30s, T40s, almost exclusively for me. 5s, 10s, 20s, and I don't bet 5s a lot. If I really like a guy outright and I don't bet him, I'll sometimes T10. I did it with Max last week. That worked out. I really wanted to cover. I had Max at 46, really wanted to cover. I thought he was going to play well. He got inside the top 10. But again, I took a worse number on Max at MGM at plus 175 when I think he was like plus 2.25 on DraftKings. And I wouldn't have got paid in the full bet there. So, that worked out well for Finau, Jason Day, Colin Morikawa, all last week were winners that would not have been full winners for me. If I had taken elsewhere. So again, it does stink on Tuesday, Wednesday, when you're making those bets and that there are 50, 60 points out there. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's tough. But those events like that make it worth it. So to my point, again, when you're at the top of the board, it's just more likely that you're seeing guys jammed up close. There are fewer outs in terms of top 5. So make sure you're smart with that. It just can feel like you got the handicap correct and then you don't get paid or rewarded for it is really tough on Sunday afternoon, Monday morning.
Yeah, 100%. Do what you do, but that's our advice to you.
Yep.
That rhymes, so it counts. So good luck with your Valspar bets. Like I mentioned, monthly packages right now, $19.99, like always. Does take you through the big event that will be held at Augusta, Georgia next month. If you're into that sort of thing, check that out at BetSports Golf. Follow us on Twitter at BetSports Golf, at AndyMSFW, at RY Noonan, at PGA Splits 101 for all the info that Ron's spitting. Check out his free preview at BetSports Golf every week. And yeah, follow this YouTube channel, subscribe, like. If you want some DFS information, him, Daigle, and Byron Lindeek will be up tomorrow afternoon talking about the builds for the DFS. My Rainmaker show will be coming soon. Eventually, it's funny too. I do have some Justin Suh rain. He's making it this week. That's what sucks about these cards. Is like sometimes it's like, oh, I have a bunch of cards. It's like, oh, this guy isn't playing this week. It's no good to me. You're just sitting there collecting virtual dust at this point.
Hey, you got JT and Justin Suh. You're doing all right.
Yeah, it's just that's my core right there. We're building the core around there. We're gonna win some more goddamn cards. All right. Well, good luck in your March Madness stuff. Good luck in your golf stuff. Have fun this week. We'll check here this time next week for me and Ryan. Peace.